The mask of toughness. Why do so many people act tough? You've seen it. A man enters the room with a hard stare, his chest puffed up like armor, voice clipped short, as if daring someone to challenge him. He thinks he looks powerful. He thinks his coldness will command respect. And maybe for a moment, people step back. Maybe someone even whispers, he looks serious. But stay long enough, and something happens. The mask slips. The performance cracks. Someone pushes just a little harder than expected, and suddenly that wall of toughness shatters into something ugly. Panic, overreaction, exposure. The crowd no longer sees strength, they see fear. Because here's the ruthless truth. Acting tough is the fastest way to prove you are weak.
Machiavelli warned rulers against this centuries ago. Yet generation after generation, people keep falling into the same trap. They confuse noise with power, performance with presence, aggression with authority. And the result? They lose everything. I'll confess something. I used to believe toughness was the key. In school, in early jobs, even in relationships. I thought if I looked hard enough, sharp enough, cold enough, people would stop testing me. I thought aggression meant control. But here's what actually happened. The more I acted tough, the more I was tested. People pushed me, challenged me, called the bluff. And deep down, I knew it was a bluff. It wasn't strength they saw in me. It was insecurity dressed as armor. That realization cut deeper than any insult, because it meant the entire performance wasn't protecting me, it was exposing me. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But he didn't mean act scary, he meant be unshakable. True fear, the useful kind, isn't created by shouting, chest-thumping, or fake aggression. It's created by calmness, patience, and the aura of control that unsettles everyone around you. The lion doesn't roar all day to prove it's the king of the jungle. The lion is feared precisely because it doesn't need to. The strongest men don't flex in every room. They sit quietly, watching. And everyone else feels it in their bones. Don't step too close. Here's the paradox. People act tough because they're afraid of being underestimated, but the very act of pretending exposes them. The louder someone yells, the more you wonder what they're hiding. The more someone brags, the more you suspect they're compensating. The more someone tries to dominate the room, the more fragile they look when silence hits. Machiavelli understood this psychological instinct. Humans are wired to test what looks forced. We sense the performance, and we poke at it until it breaks. This is why bullies crumble when finally confronted. Their toughness was always theater, and theater has no weight when reality pushes back. Let me paint a picture. Imagine a poker table. One player slams the table, shouts about their unbeatable hand, eyes darting as they try to intimidate everyone else. Another player sits quietly, no twitch, no show, just stillness. Which one do you fear? The loud one might scare you for a second, but deep down, you know noise is often bluff. The quiet one unsettles you more. Because silence forces your imagination to run wild. What are they hiding? How strong are they really? And imagination is always scarier than reality. That's the Machiavellian law at work. The less you show, the more they imagine. Here's the tragedy of acting tough. You lose respect. People don't admire a performance. They tolerate it until it cracks. You invite enemies. Fake hardness attracts challengers eager to test if it's real. You burn bridges. Toughness often pushes away potential allies who see only hostility. You live in anxiety. Pretending is exhausting. Every moment becomes a question. Did they believe me? Did I look strong enough? And slowly, the performance consumes you. You're no longer building real power. You're feeding an ego that collapses the moment someone calls your bluff. Here's a dilemma for you. Imagine someone insults you in public. Do you explode with anger to prove you're strong? Or stay calm, let silence hang, and watch the room shift uneasily toward your stillness? Most people choose the first. They think shouting equals strength,
But Machiavelli would call that weakness, because the moment you need to perform, you've already lost control. So ask yourself, in that moment, what would you do? Look at nature. The tiger doesn't twitch nervously. The eagle doesn't flap wildly. Predators move slowly, calmly, as if the entire space already belongs to them. That's real power. It's not about proving, it's about existing. It's not about showing strength. It's about being so composed that others can feel the danger without a single word. Machiavelli's hidden truth is sharp. Power comes from control, not from display. But here's the problem. Even if you stop acting tough,
Even if you choose calmness, the world won't make it easy. You'll be tested, you'll be provoked, and the mask of toughness will tempt you again and again. So how do you resist? How do you shift from performance to presence, from pretending to being? That's what we explore in the next section. When we peel back the armor and expose the cracks that reveal who's real and who's only acting. Because the Machiavellian game has just begun. The cracks in the armor. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. Niccolo Machiavelli. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Someone at the table is trying too hard to dominate. Their voice is sharp, their arms folded like steel bars, their stare fixed as if daring anyone to challenge them. At first, the room might shrink back. People hesitate, not wanting to spark conflict. But then it happens. Someone interrupts them. Someone questions their point. And in that split second, the tough guy cracks. His voice raises louder, but now it's shaky. His body stiffens unnaturally. His anger comes too quickly, too desperately. And in that moment, everyone at the table realizes the truth. He isn't powerful, he's fragile. Because when you act tough, you invite tests. And when those tests arrive, the mask always shows its seams. Machiavelli warned about this very thing. He knew rulers who overplayed harshness destroyed themselves. Fear is useful, but fear without respect collapses quickly. In other words, if your authority depends only on looking scary, the moment people stop buying the performance, you're finished. Real fear, the kind that protects power, must be backed by respect, consistency, and control. Otherwise, it's just theater. And theater ends when the curtain falls. Think about bullies. In school, on the streets, even in offices. Bullies survive on the performance of toughness. They bark louder, stand taller, shove harder. But what happens the moment someone calls their bluff? Often they crumble. Because bullies don't hold real power. They hold borrowed fear. Fear they must constantly perform. Because without the act, there's nothing underneath. And Machiavelli would say, borrowed fear is worthless. It breaks the moment it's tested. I once worked under a manager who thrived on fake toughness. He barked orders, belittled people in meetings, slammed doors to show control. For months, I mistook that noise for strength. Then came the day his authority was questioned by someone higher up. Suddenly, the lion became a mouse. He stuttered, avoided eye contact, and within weeks, his so-called empire of fear collapsed. That day, I realized something that Machiavelli had whispered all along. Fake power is more dangerous to the one who wields it than to those who face it, because when it cracks, it destroys not only your mask, but also your credibility. Here's the psychology. When you act tough, you are telling the world, I need your reaction to feel strong. And the moment you need the world owns you. Machiavelli's wisdom was the opposite. Never depend too much on others. If your strength depends on applause, fear, or constant recognition, it is not strength, it's addiction. And addictions make you vulnerable. That's why the cracks always show. Fake toughness leaks insecurity, and humans are wired to sniff insecurity like blood in the water. So here's a question for you. What do you do when someone challenges your authority? In business, in love, or in life? Do you roar louder, puff up your chest, and try to drown them with noise? Or do you stay calm, steady, controlled, letting silence do what noise never can? One path invites tests you can't win. The other makes people hesitate, wonder, and overestimate you. Which would Machiavelli choose? History is littered with rulers who lean too hard on performance. Consider Caligula, the Roman emperor infamous for his cruelty and theatrics. He paraded his toughness, demanding to be feared. At first, people obeyed, but soon the performance became predictable, exhausting, even ridiculous. His guards, those closest to him, turned on him, killing him in his own palace. Why? Because his toughness had no foundation of respect. It was theater, and his audience grew tired. Contrast that with Marcus Aurelius, who rarely raised his voice, rarely flaunted aggression. His calm presence commanded more loyalty than Caligula's screaming ever could. One ruled through panic, the other through poise. Only one was remembered as the philosopher king. In business negotiations, the cracks appear fastest. The fake tough negotiator slams the table, threatens, shouts about walking away. At first, maybe the other side blinks, but soon they realize it's a script, a bluff. And like poker, once a bluff is exposed, it has no weight. The calm negotiator, on the other hand, says little. They sit back listening, letting silence stretch. Their unpredictability unnerves everyone else. They reveal nothing. And that mystery makes them look stronger than they may even be. This is the Machiavellian way. Power is rarely about what you show, it's about what you conceal. Here's the cruel cycle of fake toughness. You act hard, people doubt it, they test you. You panic, double down, they see through it. You're exposed as weaker than before. Each round of this cycle strips away credibility until nothing remains. And once people know your toughness is fake, you don't just lose respect, you become a joke. So what's the alternative? Not performance, not noise, not pretending. The alternative is control. Control of your body. Steady movements, no fidgeting. Control of your voice. Calm, low, measured. Control of your time, never rushing to respond. Never chasing approval. This isn't acting, it's being. It's internal strength made visible through restraint. That's why Machiavelli prized calmness over theatrics, because calmness doesn't crack. Calmness cannot be easily tested. Calmness makes others fill in the blanks with their own fear. But here's where the tension rises. Even if you master calmness, life will provoke you. People will insult you, partners will test you, rivals will push you, and the temptation to slip back into acting tough will always be there. So how do you stay calm under fire? How do you hold power without shouting, without masks, without cracks? That's what we explore in the next section, the calm predator. Because true strength isn't loud. True strength is silent, steady, and terrifying in its stillness. The calm predator. The lion does not need to roar to be feared. Paraphrasing Machiavelli's principle, picture this: a crowded bar, tension in the air. Two men collide near the counter. One of them, hot-headed, puffs his chest and shouts, "Watch where you're going." His voice cuts through the noise, sharp, desperate for the room to notice. The other man, he doesn't shout, he doesn't even move quickly. He turns his head slowly, eyes steady, face unreadable. He waits a beat too long before speaking, then says only one word, "Careful." Suddenly, the loud man loses momentum. The room shifts. Who feels more dangerous? It's never the one who yells first. It's the one who can stay calm when others explode. That's the calm predator. Machiavelli understood that real power doesn't come from noise. It comes from control. He warned rulers not to show unnecessary harshness because exaggerated displays invite rebellion. Instead, he emphasized appearing steady, consistent, unshaken. Why? Because humans fear what they cannot read. Loudness is easy to measure. Calmness is impossible to calculate. A predator that moves slowly terrifies prey more than one that thrashes wildly.
After the Russian Revolution, many expected Leon Trotsky to rise as the true heir. He was fiery, brilliant, charismatic, and loud.
He gave speeches that thundered. He flaunted his role as commander of the Red Army. But Joseph Stalin? He sat quietly in the background, rarely raising his voice, rarely showing flamboyance. People dismissed him as boring, bureaucratic, too calm. Guess who ended up controlling the Soviet Union for decades? The calm predator. Trotsky's noise drew attention and enemies. Stalin's silence built networks, earned underestimation, and ultimately gave him the advantage to strike when no one expected it. This is Machiavellian. Let others burn energy performing, while you conserve power in silence. Let's be brutally honest. Most people believe the world rewards noise. They think they need to constantly prove, constantly explain, constantly assert. But here's the paradox. The more noise you make, the less power you hold. Noise signals desperation. It says, please notice me, please fear me, please believe me. And the world responds not with respect, but with suspicion. Calmness, on the other hand, signals confidence. It says, I don't need your reaction. I don't need to prove. I already am. That is terrifying. I remember being in a heated argument where someone hurled insult after insult at me. My instinct screamed, fight back, prove yourself, get louder. But something in me hesitated. Instead, I stayed silent. I breathed. I looked at them steadily and said nothing. At first, they grew angrier, desperate for my reaction. Then something shifted. Their voice cracked, their confidence faltered, and suddenly the room felt mine. That day, I understood Machiavelli's hidden truth. Silence is not weakness, it's a weapon. So let me put you in a dilemma. If someone disrespects you in front of others, what is more powerful? Snapping back immediately, defending your pride with volume, or pausing, letting silence stretch so thick it unsettles everyone in the room? Which creates more respect? Which creates more fear? The answer is obvious once you feel it. Silence bends the air heavier than shouting ever can. Machiavelli would have loved poker. Because the principle is the same. The one slamming fists and bragging about their hand is usually bluffing. The one who sits in silence, eyes calm, gives nothing away. That's the one you fear. The calm predator understands this. He doesn't rush to reveal. He doesn't play all his cards. He lets others guess, overestimate, underestimate, and then uses their imagination against them. Because imagination is always scarier than reality. So, how do you cultivate this aura in real life? Master silence. Don't rush to fill gaps in conversation. Let pauses breathe. Silence unsettles because humans hate the unknown. Control body language. Relaxed shoulders, smooth movements, no jittery fidgeting, like a lion that moves slow as if the world already belongs to it. Ask instead of defend. If someone attacks, you don't know what you're talking about. Instead of arguing, interesting, why do you think that? Now they're on the spot, unraveling themselves while you remain unshaken. Use fewer words. Weak men ramble. Strong men cut with brevity, say less. Each word lands heavier. Detach from outcome. When you need to win, you look desperate. When you can walk away calmly, you look powerful. These aren't tricks. They're disciplines, and discipline is what makes calmness terrifying. In business, when the boss yells, the calm employee who keeps composure often becomes the one trusted most. In relationships, when provoked, the calm partner breaks the cycle of drama. Drama feeds on reaction. Calmness starves it. In leadership, the leader who speaks less, listens more, and reacts with steadiness gains loyalty far longer than the one who rules by tantrum. Machiavelli would say, calmness outlives noise. Here's why calm predators win. They're underestimated at first. Their silence builds mystery. Their restraint saves energy, and when they finally act, it's decisive, shocking, unstoppable. Noise burns fast.
Calmness builds slow, but slow power lasts. But here's the twist you need to prepare for. Calmness alone isn't enough. Because once people realize you're calm, they will still try to predict you. And predictability, even calm predictability, makes you vulnerable. The next level is Machiavellian unpredictability, the art of being unclassifiable. The moment no one can guess your next move, you stop being respected and start being feared. That's what we explore in the next section, the twist of power. Because this is where the predator stops being calm and becomes truly dangerous. The twist of power. A prince must learn how not to be good and to use that knowledge or refrain from using it as necessity requires. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Prince. Up until now, we've uncovered the mask of fake toughness, the cracks it creates, and the silent strength of the calm predator. But here's the turning point. Even calmness can be predictable. If people know you're always calm, they adjust. They think, he won't react, she won't strike back. And predictability, no matter how dignified, is weakness. The final Machiavellian twist is this. Once calmness is mastered, you must learn to break it at the right moment. To move from respected to feared. Because fear is not born from what people understand. Fear is born from what they cannot predict. Humans can endure almost anything, as long as they see it coming. But shock, surprise, sudden reversal, that's what rattles the soul. The calm colleague who one day, without warning, ends a negotiation with a single line that changes the entire deal. The quiet leader who suddenly raises their voice once in a decade. And that single moment echoes louder than 1,000 speeches. The composed friend who, after endless tolerance, cuts off betrayal with ruthless finality. It's not the noise that terrifies. It's the sudden break in pattern. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must be like both the lion and the fox. The lion symbolizes force. The fox symbolizes cunning. Together, they represent adaptability. A ruler who is always gentle becomes prey. A ruler who is always harsh invites rebellion. The true master shifts shape, unreadable, unpredictable, impossible to cage. This is the twist of power, knowing when to stay calm and when to shock. Julius Caesar was famous for mercy. After battles, he often pardoned enemies to win their loyalty. People began to expect it. They grew comfortable with the idea that Caesar was merciful. Then, at times, he broke the pattern. He executed disloyal allies without hesitation. The shock reminded Rome that mercy was a choice, not a weakness. His unpredictability multiplied both loyalty and fear. Had he always been merciful, rivals would have plotted without fear. Had he always been ruthless, enemies would have united in terror. But by mixing the two, Caesar made every man uncertain, and uncertainty is a ruler's shield. Steve Jobs was known for calm control, but also sudden explosions. Most of the time, he appeared thoughtful, composed. But every so often, he'd erupt, in fury at a design, in sudden rejection of a product idea. People feared those rare outbursts more than if he had raged every day, because they never knew when it would come. The unpredictability made his calmness heavier and his anger nuclear. This wasn't lack of control, this was Machiavellian design. Think of the tiger. It stalks quietly, barely visible in the grass. For long minutes, maybe hours, it does nothing. Calm, silent, watching. Then suddenly, it strikes with violence so swift the prey doesn't even scream. That's the model of power Machiavelli would whisper about. Calmness is camouflage. Sudden, decisive action is fear. Together, they make you untouchable. There was a time I leaned too hard on being calm. I thought if I stayed unshaken, I'd always win. And for a while, it worked. People respected my composure. But then some began to exploit it. They thought my calmness meant I would never draw boundaries, never push back. They started testing limits. One day, I broke the pattern. I ended a toxic business relationship with one sentence, no explanation, and walked away. The silence after was deafening. For months, my reputation changed. Suddenly, people whispered, "Don't test him, he's calm," until he isn't. That unpredictability did what endless calmness never could. It made people afraid to underestimate me again. So here's the question for you. Would you rather be respected for always being calm, predictable, steady, but eventually easy to game? Or feared for being calm most of the time, but dangerous when provoked, impossible to predict? Untouchable because no one knows where your limit lies? Which version truly protects you? Which version would Machiavelli choose? Here are tactics to practice Machiavellian unpredictability in your own life. Keep calm as default 90% of the time. Stay poised, steady, controlled. Build your reputation on silence and stillness. Choose rare moments to break it, when disrespected beyond tolerance, when a decisive shift is needed. Break your calm with action, so sharp it shocks. Make it memorable. One act of unexpected ruthlessness will echo louder than 100 speeches. Let people talk. Let them retell it. Their fear will multiply the legend. Retreat back to calm. After the shock, return to silence. Don't explain. Don't justify. Let unpredictability live in their imagination. This rhythm, calm, 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 shock, calm, is the heartbeat of Machiavellian fear. The calm predator is respected. The unpredictable predator is feared. Respect protects you in ordinary times. Fear protects you in extraordinary ones. And life, as Machiavelli knew, is filled with extraordinary moments of betrayal, upheaval, and manipulation. If you can only be calm, you will eventually be cornered. But if you can be calm and unpredictable, no one will ever dare test your limits fully. So far, we've unmasked fake toughness, exposed its cracks, revealed the calm predator, and unleashed the twist of unpredictability. But there's one final truth left, the deepest Machiavellian secret of all. When appearances, calmness, and unpredictability are mastered, they don't just change how others see you, they change how you see yourself. In the following section, The Machiavellian Secret, we'll uncover how illusion hardens into identity and how pretending transforms into becoming. That's the end game, the moment when the mask isn't a mask anymore. The Machiavellian Secret. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Prince. We've walked the path together, the fake toughness that shatters, the cracks that expose insecurity, the calm predator who terrifies without noise, the twist of power, unpredictability that commands fear. But now comes the end game. The Machiavellian secret is not simply about manipulating how others see you, it's about transforming how you see yourself. Because here's the brutal truth. If you pretend long enough, the mask stops being a mask. And that's not weakness, that's strategy. At first, wearing calmness feels unnatural. Holding silence feels forced. Breaking predictability feels staged. But over time, something happens. The way people respond to you, the respect, the hesitation, the whispers, feeds back into your own self-perception. Suddenly, you're no longer just acting composed. You are composed. You're no longer acting unpredictable. You are unpredictable. The illusion calcifies into identity. Machiavelli understood this feedback loop. Perception shapes reality. When others treat you as powerful, you begin to internalize power. And when you internalize it, you become it. I'll admit something. When I first tried these Machiavellian strategies, silence, scarcity, unpredictability, it felt fake. Like I was putting on someone else's skin. I worried people could tell. But then, slowly, the world began treating me differently. Colleagues waited for my input instead of dismissing me. Rivals hesitated before challenging me. Even friends and family adjusted their tone. And somewhere along the way, I stopped worrying about looking fake.
because it wasn't fake anymore. I had become the very thing I was pretending to be. That's the Machiavellian secret. Act as if until you no longer have to act. Most people fail because they can't stomach this transition. They say, I don't want to be fake. But here's the paradox. Staying authentic to your weakness is still fake, because it hides the strength you're capable of becoming. Machiavelli would tell you, authenticity is not about clinging to weakness. It's about evolving into what the world requires you to be. And in a ruthless world, the world requires strength, not the performance of toughness, but the transformation of self. So let me ask you one last time. Would you rather remain honestly weak, admired by no one, respected by none, prey to manipulation and betrayal? Or would you rather wear the mask of power until the mask becomes your face, until no one, not even you, can tell the difference? This is the fork in the road, and Machiavelli's whisper is clear. Choose transformation, not excuses. Julius Caesar began as a polished upstart mocked for vanity, but his consistent projection of inevitability made him believe his own myth. That belief carried him to absolute power. Stalin, once overlooked as dull and unimpressive, he learned to weaponize silence and unpredictability until they fused into his identity and reshaped a nation's fate. Modern leaders, CEOs, politicians, influencers, many begin by borrowing the mask of composure or strength. Over years, it becomes who they are. That's why their aura feels natural, because they rehearsed it until it wasn't rehearsal anymore. The mask becomes the man. Here's the final Machiavellian image to hold in your mind. The predator is not born calm, silent, and dangerous. It grows into it. Through failure, through watching, through patience. The mask of control becomes muscle memory. The unpredictability becomes instinct. That's how you stop acting and start becoming. I'll give you a task. Tomorrow, test the secret yourself. Walk slower, breathe deeper, say less. Break one small pattern. Delay a reply, cut short a conversation. Leave them wondering. Watch how the air around you changes. Then repeat it again and again until you no longer feel like you're trying, until it simply becomes who you are. That is Machiavelli's secret in practice. Illusion repeated is no longer illusion. It is destiny. Machiavelli never told us to be fake. He told us to be strategic, to use appearances, silence, unpredictability not as masks, but as tools of evolution. Because power isn't given. Power is built. And building starts with pretending until you become. So remember this when you step into the ruthless world. Don't act tough. Don't crack. Don't just stay calm. Become the predator whose silence terrifies, whose unpredictability protects, and whose mask has fused into identity. That is the Machiavellian way. Now, I'll leave you with this. Have you ever pretended to be stronger than you were and discovered that over time you actually became stronger? Drop your story in the comments. And if this journey through Machiavelli's mind hit you deeply, subscribe. This is the space where we cut through illusions and face the ruthless truth. Because here's the last thing to remember. Power isn't about who you are. It's about who they believe you are, until finally belief and reality become the same.